Thank you for tuning in. You're listening to SynthWorld on WSLR LP 96.5 FM Sarasota and WBPV LP 100.1 FM Bradenton. I'm your host, DJ Nomad, and I am psyched to be here with Vaporwave artist, just kind of hazy, funky, a little bit of scholastic vibes as well, just kind of all around down tempo artist. Pastel Beach, aka Calvin. Calvin, thanks for being here, man.
Oh, for sure. Super psyched to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, excited to have you. As I mentioned to you earlier, I've known about your music for at least a couple years now, and you're via another artist that's similar in the scene, and I just it's hard to it's for whatever reason it's kind of hard to get artists vaporwave-y kind of artist on the show. So thank you for coming on and representing the scene.
Most definitely. Super happy to be here. I can't wait to get into it.
Yes, and we want to start with where you are. I'm not sure if I mentioned it in my intro, but you are in the southern Washington state area. Is that right?
Yeah, Vancouver, Washington area.
Oh, Vancouver. Very cool. Never heard of that before. I actually lived in Washington state for a few months randomly. Um, do you have you spent much time in the Seattle area?
Yeah, I was born there. I didn't really spend too much time there because I moved when I was very young. Spent most of my childhood on a farm in Kelso, Washington, and then moved down to the Vancouver area when I was like 14.
Now, so very cool. So, is Southern where you're at in Washington, is it also kind of more? Because I know a lot of people don't realize that a good chunk of Washington state, the whole eastern side of it is, farmland essentially, right?
Yeah, it's like a big desert.
Yeah, it's
No,
dry
I'm
and
on the
flat.
I'm on the other side. I'm on the coastal side of the
Okay,
mountains. So
that's
it
nice. That's nice.
rains here a lot. It's gloomy. I love it. It's perfect.
You like yeah, very cool. Okay, so you're kind of opposite from me.
Yeah.
I love the sunshine, but what's the like indie music, indie electronica retro scene like there? Is there anything going on?
I mean, if you really want to go to shows, then you would just drive to Portland. It's only like 20 minutes away. There's not really much to say about Vancouver, Washington. It's I don't know. Couple there's just places to work and some good restaurants, but it's not really like a big town. It's just kind of a big sprawling suburb development for people that commute to Portland pretty much.
Ah, okay, I see. I see. Okay. Well, I mean, do you like it there? Do you like that it's kind of a small, town? You're not dealing with as much like hustle bustle, traffic.
Yeah, no, I'm not. I honestly stay in quite a bit. I'm kind of a homebody. I don't really go out and do too much. I kind of work my job, come home, make music, and that's about it.
Yeah.
So,
Uh, Not a surprise there. As a lot of the artists in the scene, I feel like.
yeah, I
A
like
lot of
my
nerds.
computer.
You, you said you like your computer?
I like my computer. It does everything I need.
Is it your best friend?
It is my best friend, as sad as that sounds.
No, it's okay. It's like I said, I don't know if you heard it or not, but I was like, it's a lot of nerds. It's a lot of nerdy people and
Yeah.
kind of black sheeps of their family, it seems like. So,
Yeah, don't remind me.
yeah, and you're not far from one of my first, I think it might have been my first guest on the show. I just don't think it's the first one that's was put on my YouTube. But I believe before I interviewed FM Skyline, who you mentioned earlier, was a gentleman and was so crazy that it came on my show at that point because I just started it.
Yeah.
Um, but not far from you, I believe, if he's still there in Oregon, is Pastel Graphics.
I
Very
know. I know that guy.
You met him. Such
I
a nice
haven't met
guy.
him. I haven't met him. I've hit him up on
Oh,
Instagram DMs, but I was just like, dang, man, you're too close with too similar a name. We might have to slug it out.
town ain't big enough for the both
Town ain't
pastels.
big enough for two. Yeah.
Two pastels. That's hilarious. He's such a
Yeah.
nice guy. Do you remember when you first picked up like an instrument and kind of fell in love with that? And then also like when you kind of stumbled at that, the combination of that and like the indie electronica scene?
Yeah, so my dad was in a band and is still in a band for his entire life, and so I was exposed to studio equipment and drums and guitars, and my dad is a keyboard guy, and so
Very
synthesizers
nice.
especially through my whole life. And I only started really making music when I was 14, but I was listening to a lot of music prior to that. Um, and I'd always been really, always really liked like OSTs of a lot of the games that I played for, especially for like PlayStation 2. I really liked like the Monster Cat electronic type stuff, like everything from that scene, like dubstep type of stuff. And I liked it, but then there was like a couple songs that I was like, whoa, I really like that. And so I started honing in on like these sounds that I liked. And then in 2014, I got into like the lo-fi beat SoundCloud scene. And I was like, oh wow, this is great sounding stuff. And this was like before lo-fi beats really got sterilized. Um, it was just like people on SoundCloud making like really awesome beats
Hmm.
and like just crushing them with through tapes and all this type of stuff. And I remember specifically this one song where I was like, I got to start making something similar. And it was by an artist named Tropes, and it's Out of Pocket is the track name. It's an amazing track. I don't know how he did it or how they did it or whatever, but that's what got me into making lo-fi beats under the name State of Apathy. And I did that for a couple years.
Now, tell me, the moniker Pastel Beach. How did you? What's the origin of that?
I got the name Pastel Beach. This was kind of, I think, back in 2018, or yeah, about 2018 when I started the Pastel Beach name. And I had been listening to this guy on SoundCloud who went by Juno Beach, like the Juno series of Roland synthesizers.
Mhm.
He later went on to rename himself Polystyrex, but that's literally where I got the name. I was like, I like the beach. So what's kind of a cool color set? Pastels. All right, there you go. There's zero thought behind the name. It's
That's
just
okay.
vibes. Uh,
It fits the vibes well for what you do. Have you ever been approached to produce music for a video game? And if not, are there any like types of games or like a game specifically that you'd be like, okay, I would love to make the soundtrack to this?
yeah, so I'm on retainer and actively working for one game that's in development.
Ooh,
Um, it's not the type of music that I would usually make. It's more like hard synth, like Hotline Miami type of stuff.
okay.
Um, and that game does not have a projected release date, but and I can't really talk about it too much,
Hmm.
but it is like Hotline Miami with a lot of influences from a game called Cruelty Squad.
Okay. Cruelty Squad. I'll have to check
That's
that
a
out.
that's a banger of a video game. That's one of my favorite video games ever, just stylistically. It's so abrasive on your eyes, it hurts to look at.
I'm looking at pictures of it right now. Oh my
it's
God.
it's like DOS jank.
Talk
I
about
love it.
trip. Talk about trippy. Holy cannoli.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Wow. And it's like the PS1 style graphics, which I love.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. Okay. Very cool. So while we're on video games, are there any like video game series that are like your absolute favorites that like if Dream OST, or even just favorite video games growing up that maybe shaped the way your music palette or whatever?
Yeah, so I have a very deep sentimentality towards older like SNES and N64 era Nintendo titles, but I never really played those games. The reason being is I actually watched a lot of my family members play those games because I was born in 2000. I kind of missed that
Hmm.
in reality, but when I was too young to really play those games, I was sitting and watching my family members play those games. Like I watched my mom play Ocarina of Time from start to finish, and then she tried to play Majora's Mask and couldn't really figure it out. But and then I watched my
Definitely a
my
hard one.
cousin play a whole bunch of SNES titles, and so without really having played those games, they still hold like a lot of emotional heft for me.
Well, and on some level, think about it like you're watching, you're not playing them, right? So you're just watching it almost like it's a movie, a cinematic experience. So
Yeah,
your experience with those games and the soundtracks is probably a little different than your family members who were like using some of their brainwidth power and bandwidth to just focus on pressing the right buttons so to look at it that
definitely.
way.
And then like games that I played on my own, like mostly on PS2. I remember Shenmue 3. No, wait, not Shenmue. Suikoden. Yeah, Suikoden, or however you pronounce it, 3.
Yeah, I
That
think
was a big one. There's so much good stuff on Internet Archive. You can play whole DOS games. It has a DOS box emulator built into the website.
hmm
And so I think I've done this before where I go through and it's like the format of how it's set up is like you flip through these CDs and you can play the DOS games that were included on those CDs. And then like I'd open up Audacity and record in audio from these games that, no one has listened to audio from these games in 30 or 40 years or whatever. And incorporate that in little snippets in my music as just like one-off samples or like risers or stuff like that.
wow. I do want to talk about some of the kind of the more like melancholy kind of nature to your music.
Mm.
It's obviously not all of your music, and obviously the your most recent release, the say it one more time, leisure sports and tabletop
Yeah, leisure sport and tabletop suite.
tweet. Okay, sorry, it's a is definitely kind of less in that direction. I'm sure Cambrian 3D probably a little bit too, but a lot of your stuff has that kind of that background melancholy to it. It reminds me of, we talked about Windows 96. The Gorillas is the other group that I think maybe it's just there's a lot of brass to it, but it's a really niche sound. It's hard to find. It feels like on some level it's probably like a personality trait. But if you had to guess or put words to it, what would you credit with that kind of Pastel Beach filter that comes out of that's over your music?
Throughout a lot of my life, I've kind of felt like an observer more so than an active participant. That's changed recently, but this idea of just being on the outside looking in and just time passing, and like this old computer music kind of speaks to me in a way just simply because of the instruments used, and it sounds like robotic a lot of the time. That like I like a lot of the MIDI wave stuff that FM Skyline's doing, or
Mhm.
the kind of more psychedelic tinge stuff that Windows 96 does, because it's very soulful music, but it's using like instruments that very heavily occupy the uncanny valley, and it's like if a desktop computer was left alone in a pocket dimension and got all depressed after thousands of years and gained sentience, it's like that's probably the music it would start to make. It's
Like,
the best juxtaposition ever. Like
yeah.
I heard I heard Nematofi by Windows 96 in 2017, and I like dropped everything I was doing with the lo-fi beat stuff. I was like, I need to make something like this. And
Yeah.
that album is mostly made using sound fonts, um, which is
Oh.
an interesting thing. It's just like all the little micro samples that were packed into SNES cartridges. The someone took them back out and then made a player that could play them, just like how SNES would play those samples like a tracker.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, so sound fonts are also another pretty decent chunk of uh, this type of music as well.
We've been talking about all the like these. synths and sounds and stuff
Yeah.
like that that have made up a lot of those old retro PC games.
Hmm.
And that's where I was listening through, I feel like most of your catalog. If you had to be stuck in one of those worlds, at first I was gonna say like one of those top down, but I changed the question because I don't want to limit it. But like, yeah, if you had to be stuck in some old retro PC game world for eternity, what would it be?
Um, Probably the the Kingsfield series.
Kingsfield? Is that what you said?
Yeah, Kingsfield. They're from FromSoft games, like the people who ended up eventually making like Demon Souls and Dark Souls, but that was their dungeon crawler game previously.
This is awesome. Dude, you have maybe more than any guest to maybe like search a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, Kingsfield 4 I think is the one I would want to be in. That game has immaculate vibes.
Oh my God, this is where you'd want to be? Okay.
Yeah,
I
the
guess
dark the darkest dungeons.
I guess you are in the right place being in the Pacific Northwest then.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, this is really cool though. So were any of these released before 2001?
Um, when did Kingsfield 1 release? I Probably I think it was a PS1 title.
Oh, okay, then I have it. Like this emulator I has like every
Yeah.
single game. So now
Yeah,
whenever we're done with this,
Kingsfield.
I'm gonna try out Kingsfield. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's like a prototype um progenitor to Dark Souls in a lot of ways.
Hmm.
And I love the Dark Souls series. That's one of my personal favorites.
Golly, you might talk about a hard game, scary game too. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, I was never like dungeon crawlers always scared me.
That's what I like about them though, is like it's so tense and like you're
You can't see
stuck.
very
Like
far in front of you. I
it's
hated
great.
that. Yeah, okay. So you must like horror movies and stuff like that too, huh?
Yeah, I'm a big fan. Not necessarily a slasher stuff, but like isolation type stuff. Like the original 1979 Alien is one of my favorite movies.
So I want to ask you a little bit about we talked about your love for VSTs or your at minimum you'd be a good salesman for pitching people VSTs over analog. And it feels like you've really attacked, touched on, absorbed, done, manifested the like dreamy synth pad sound in just about every way you can. You know what I mean? If you listen to your catalog, and I love that's one of my favorite parts of this music are those pads. Um, do you have what do you have like maybe a best piece of gear, a best plugin, a best effect or VST that for someone just trying to like jump off into the water, into the clouds and be there. Do you have anything to like kind of help jumpstart them?
Yeah. Um, so in terms of like synths, like what? Okay, I'll start with this. So Eyeliner, right? His album By Now, I believe was entirely made using a Korg M1. And these are like workstation synths from 1989. And there's a great VST of it. That is like, if you want to get into the retro, like MIDI wave type of music, get the Korg M1. It's a total workhorse.
Do you have
If
any
you
like
re-
effects that give you like really great, perfect, the perfect reverb or anything like that?
The Lexicon 244 is a personal favorite of mine. That's from Universal Audio.
Okay.
If I want a reverb, then I'll use that. Also, just a trick that I do is so I have my signal in one mixer send, and then I send that signal, let's say it's like a synth pad or something, to another send, and then put the reverb at 100% wet. So it's just the reverb on that one send. And then I put like a phaser on just the reverb. So it like melts the reverb and creates this amorphous floating cloud of reverb. And then I send those both to one and mix them back together.
I wanted to ask you about, we touched on the Helpline series, which I really loved. The samples you pulled, it's
Hmm.
it's just golly, yeah, it felt so like 80s, like late 80s and whatnot. But can you just briefly kind of speak on your motivation for that release? And I know that happened last July, so hopefully we'll have some more. We'll have a second entry at some point.
Yeah, so Helpline was just I wanted to do something like since I'd been out of the game for a little bit, I was just like I don't want to try and overextend myself. I was super focused on like a multimedia type of thing. It was like if you if you got some breakfast cereal and there was a floppy disk in that box of breakfast cereal as like a promotional thing, which they used to do. This would be the DOS game. This would be the soundtrack for the DOS game included on that breakfast cereal. And that's one of the names of the songs is Serial ROM.
Mhm.
And I think you said earlier it's like Eyewitness. That's also like very much so the aesthetic I wanted to go for.
Oh yeah, for sure. That's what I was gonna say. Is like so much of uh, I would say like kind of your music in general, but definitely that album specifically, or that would you call that an LP? That'd be an LP.
It's an EP.
EP?
It's like it's I think 6 songs and under is an EP.
Mm. Yeah, I mean it just sounded like something that could the music especially could be a part of like a cousin TV show to Eyewitness, right?
Yeah.
So it made me wonder, like, does that mean, are you as much of a nature lover as like your music would kind of suggest?
I definitely enjoy a lot of like nature documentaries, especially stuff about the ocean.
Mhm.
I'm a big aquatics fan.
Do you go to the ocean at all? I will say this, we've got some really beautiful, especially on the Gulf side here in Florida, ocean and nature to check out if you ever get yourself down here. One of my favorite aspects of your music is that you don't restrain yourself in that way. You like really you're willing to ride out those synth leads and those leads, those melodies. You like I don't know. I just feel like you're willing to do that in a way that many artists are kind of hesitant to do it. So actually I'm going to skip the synth thing because we talked about it. I'm just curious, like, what would be your advice to someone who's like trying to incorporate more of that or is hesitant to do that? You know what I mean?
Yeah, because I've noticed that a lot with synthwave type stuff. Is there's not usually a driving melody behind it. It's
Very
you know
basic.
in a lot of my songs there's like a very clear like hey here's the big here's the lead synth that's playing the lead synth melody and it could change instruments throughout the song but there's always some kind of driving melody through most of my songs and I noticed in like just for example like hotel pools right it's a more laid back it doesn't command as much of your attention because when there's a big lead synth in your face it's kind of hard to ignore the song and not pay attention to where the melody's going. But if you
Mhm.
have more like tertiary instruments like bells in the stereo field, kind of more building atmosphere, and you get a melody that way, that's I guess that's just personal preference to how I work. It's like
Right.
I I like having a song sing for itself essentially, and I'm not very good at singing yet. I might incorporate that later into some tracks. I have incorporated into a couple.
Again, I'm with you there. Like to me, it doesn't have to be every track. I think there's obviously tracks where the atmospheric, what you've described there is kind of actually fits the track better, and that's fine. But
Mhm.
there's just plenty of them. You just mentioned Hotel Pools. He's a great artist, but probably a good example, honestly, where it's like you've done all of the work to set up that melody, right? And then
Mhm.
they just don't like take that final step and really
And they
like
don't do it.
send it home. Like, yes,
I
now let's
love that's
go.
one thing I love is just like I think specifically like a great track example is Future Wind O2 from New Twilight Music Volume 2. That track starts off atmospheric. There's not so much of a driving melody, and then halfway through the track, there's a breakdown, and then it starts up, and I bring in this totally corny, like 2010 Minecraft YouTuber intro music synth lead, and it's like the best lead ever, and it's just totally unashamed, and it goes on for the rest of the track, and it's a very memorable melody.
So I wanna pivot for just a second, as much fun as we're having about that, to the new Twilight albums. We kind of mentioned them earlier. Really great compilation albums. I mean, you did a great job. I really like those. For me, I'm wondering, because I'm assuming there might be chances that you do this in the future or continue with that. But for that album, at least, how did you go about picking the artists? Were you just pulling from artists from the previous one, or did you reach
So
out to
yeah,
people?
the whole previous lineup was there from the first one. I think Gabriel Windows 96 only had one track on the new Twilight Music 2, but then we were just like, all right, who's some people from the like Windows 96 production Discord who have been making really cool stuff, kind of like the freshmen, so to speak.
Well, yeah, it's really cool. I'm glad to hear you also kind of like trying to pull in other artists that are lesser known, you know what I mean? The freshmen of the scene, if you will.
Yeah.
We need people to do that, and I hope you'll continue to do something like that. Do you have any other? I know you're not like typically a very collab heavy artist, but do you have any other stuff like, collaborations coming in the future?
So there is one of the bonus tracks for Leisure Sport and Tabletop Suite, um, is called Landscape Painter, and Alt laid some guitars down for that track.
You said
Um,
alt?
Alt ALT. He's another pretty prolific guy in the Twilight synth scene. He hasn't released a ton of music, but he's very active in the community, and
Hmm.
he had some of the best tracks for New Twilight Music Volume 2, and also he was on number 1.
How do you've put a lot of time, energy, lots of great releases. I know you probably have plans to continue doing this for a while. How do you kind of see this moniker, Pastel Beach itself, kind of evolving over the next, 5 years, 10 years?
So I kind of want to pivot away from the very easily identifiable like video game, you know, nostalgia type of stuff, and create things that totally stand on their own, aesthetically. And that's I still love all the same synths and all that stuff, but more like stuff, not necessarily atmospheric stuff, but One of Tricks Point Never is a
Mhm.
great example of art that stands on its own, and you can very easily tell that it's influenced by a lot of 80s and 90s, but it is very much so its own thing with just like a flavoring of those decades and instruments.
Mhm.
And I think that's eventually where I'll end up, is more so stuff akin to that stylistically.
I want to make sure we're always, even when I'm celebrating and promoting artists in the scene that are like more well known and well established. I
Hmm.
still want to always try to incorporate artists in the scene that aren't as well established or aren't as well known, right? Don't get the
Definitely.
love that they deserve, even in a genre of music that doesn't get the love it deserves in general. So for you, I know you're going to have some good thoughts on this. Top two or three most underappreciated artists in the scene and why?
So for like the chill wave type of thing, like if people are a big fan of Washed Out, and kind of earlier Bandcamp legends like that. That was like a more of a 2010s, like the Neon Indian, like that type of stuff. Brother Tiger. If you're a fan of those guys, you absolutely have to check out Inner Nature. Inner Nature.
He was on my show like 2 months ago.
I know. I watched the
Oh, you
episode,
saw it? Okay. Hell yeah. Yeah.
and his Violet Vices album is absolutely fantastic. Just really, really good stuff. Very interesting. If you want some very meaty, well crafted, I would say non denominational DIY electronic music, definitely check out Polystyrex. I have like all of his music on tape. After he passed away, there was this commemorative box set of tapes that Stratford released, edition of 50. And I got one of those. And so anytime I'm doing homework or anything, I'm always playing his tapes. And hugely, hugely influential to my music.
Very cool. Okay, well, you heard it from Pastel Beach himself. Okay, don't be sleeping on Polystyrex. He's up there with the synth gods, watching over us.
Yes.
Hopefully, sending down mana and great vibes and energy to you, a supporter of his. So. And speaking of bangers, you've got two. Well, I've only heard one of them, but I'm gonna take a shot in the dark and say two bangers of albums to be released here. And I don't want to, before
Yes.
we go, we've only got a little time left. I don't want to not skip over both of those. So let's start with Cambrian 3D, especially since that one's been kind of advertised for a while now. Where does that project kind of stand? And if you can, for people who don't, for listeners of the synth world who don't know anything about that project, that album, give them like a little quick taste, if you will.
Okay, so Cambrian 3D, I had this idea for like if you've ever seen that, like we were talking about earlier, nature documentaries. There was this show called like Walking with Monsters, and it was like a spin-off from another show called Walking with Dinosaurs, and it had these like CGI renders of dinosaurs fighting each other. And Walking with Monsters was the spin-off series that goes way back to like the beginning of life in the oceans. And I remembered that and I was like, whoa, that would be like the coolest idea for like an RTS top-down game, but it's in like the Cambrian oceans and like that type of thing. And that's where just the idea went from, like an old school RTS game, but for controlling weird sea creatures 600 million years ago.
Yeah, prehistoric.
And yeah, it's like think like Spore or something.
Uh-huh.
And
That's
and so I finally got the album the way I wanted it, and I got it mastered in January. So the album has been complete since January, and it's just been I've been waiting on like cover art and physicals to be ready. So I think we'll have like 100 cassette tapes and 250 vinyls at Midwest Collective Bandcamp page, and it's slated to release middle of July. And there's going to be a full 3D visualizer that I had done. Let's move on to Leisure Sport and Tabletop Suite.
Yes, I was gonna say, I think here is a perfect little segue to your next album, right?
Yeah.
I got a chance. Thank you for letting me listen to that. I had a blast with it, and I don't want to sway listeners one way or the other and what to expect because I have my own interpretations of it. But can you at least just talk about where you came up with the name and the concept and just what can they expect from this, I would say kind of pivotal release from you, maybe.
So it's likely not coming out for a little while because I'm still have Cambrian 3D in the pipeline. So I know I just got done saying how Cambrian 3D is like an amazing narrative-driven experience meant to be consumed in one sitting. Leisure Sport and Tabletop Suite is like the opposite of that. And it's I was like, how do I make an album of a bunch of songs that loosely fit narratively, not really even narratively, just vibes wise? And how do I make that make sense? And I was like, oh, what there's like games for work computers or something. It's like solitaire or like pinball or something like that. And I was like, what if there was like third market third-party software that you could install in your work computer that just has like a bunch of time waster games. And that's where Leisure Sport and Tabletop Suite came in. It's like chess, golf, billiards, bowling, like stuff like that. And it was like Wii Sports, but for a 1995 desktop computer. And that you're not supposed to be playing at work. But
Like
and that's
knockoff
where it came up
games
with,
and stuff like that.
yeah, like knockoff like time waster games.
Yeah.
And that's how I did the naming conventions for that album. And I went for like a more like Cambrian 3D is very much digital synths, like the Korg Wave Station. I think there's some JD 800 in there. It's very digital. Whereas for Leisure Sport and Tabletop Suite, I actually took inspiration mostly from late 70s synthesizers. So it's mostly analog synthesizers on that one. And a lot less reliance on soundscapes than Cambrian 3D. Cambrian 3D is very heavy on like Y2K, like phasery, like ambient synth walls and huge pads and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I really wanted to flex my compositional muscles in Leisure Sport and Tabletop Suite. So there's like some very well thought out tracks in there from a compositional level, essentially. Like it's a little bit more musically complex than Cambrian 3D.
Yeah, just amazing. So did you have favorites? I'm sorry if you said them already, but
Tournament golf, it doesn't do anything crazy. It's just a very solid song. Like it is catchy. It's very well mixed. It's one of my better mixes. And it does have that Wii Sports type of vibe to it.
mm-hmm.
And that's why I put it first, is to like set the tone for the rest of the album. Ultimate Billiards is that song that I was really inspired by Ambrosia. And I was like, I ripped off some of their production techniques and instruments to like really solidify that vibe. Solo Solitaire is kind of an interesting track, definitely a little bit darker than the other ones. It has there's this organ pluck lead in there that I just absolutely love. That was so fun to make.
And then the last question for you, I've held on to you for way longer than I should have, and I appreciate you taking the time. It's been a pleasure. I want to let the SynthWorld listeners know where they can go to find their Pastel Beach.
Is that like what my socials are, or like more metaphorical?
You can take it metaphorical if you want to. I meant more yes. Where can they go to find your music, learn more about you, get themselves immersed in your world?
So my stuff after a current date is all up on Spotify from Far From Home going forward. If you want some more of the deep cuts, like the very early stuff, check out my Bandcamp. If you want physicals, that's also where the physicals are. I'm no longer updating my SoundCloud just because it's kind of a dead platform a lot of the time, which sucks. There's just not any traffic. But yeah, Spotify, Apple Music, Bandcamp if you want to cop physicals and get some of the earlier stuff. YouTube also, that's where you can find all the visuals and stuff like that.
That's direct from the source right there. Where to go to get more Pastel Beach. That's going to be Southern Washington based vaporwave, psychedelic, utopic, scholastic artist, Calvin, aka Pastel Beach. Great artist. Good time until I see you next. Stay retro. 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 Stay retro.